1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 1, 2, 3. Раз, два, три. 1, 2, 3.
Kazakhstan Respublikasının memlekеттік гимні.
Distinguished members of the conference, today, by the 30th anniversary of the Day of Spiritual Concord, we organized a conference. Spiritual Concord is the basis of the world. Welcome to our international conference. In the work of our conference, representatives of the central government authorities, international organizations, international experts, as well as representatives of science and other experts participate. In this regard, I'd like to say that the Day of Spiritual Concord increases the unity of our nation when there is the spiritual concord that harmonically is linked to our development. That's why I think that today's speeches and presentations will give another impulse to the development of Spiritual Concord. In 1992, in October, the public statesman gave an initiative. Mr. Muhammadjanov Tolegan initiated to make this day as a day of spiritual concord. And from that year, in all the regions, we celebrate this day. And the head of the state, Mr. Tokayev, said in his message to the nation that Concord unity will be guarantee or guarantors of our further development. And certainly, inter-ethnical, harmonical relations as well as concord in our communities will be very important. And this year in September, in the capital of our state, there was the 7th Congress of the Leaders of Traditional Religions. And out of 50 states, more than 100 delegates participated in this Congress. And the leaders of the religions call for the peace. And Kazakhstan, in such an international forum, increased its level of reputation. And as for the religion and religious organizations, their relations with our state also is very important. And the interstate confession relations are developing, which is also the basis for our concord. Let me welcome you in the international conference that is devoted to the Day of Spiritual Concord. And it is symbolic that today's event goes in the year of 30th anniversary from the day when such an event was appropriated. And this is a sign of Concord help and assistance to all people around you. And I sincerely congratulate you on this day. Initiator of today's holiday is among us. This is Mr. Muhammadjanov Tolegan. Thank you very much, Mr. Tolegan. We all wish you health, family well-being, and we'd like also to say that in this room there is the Deputy Mayor of Astana, Mr. Yesset Berikovich Bayken, as well as our special guest, the President of International Global Safety Institute, Mr. Jonathan Granov, Mr. Suhail Naim Farah, Rector of the Kyrgyz National Conservatory, Mr. Muratbek Akimovich. Also the leaders of the religious associations. The topic of our conference is the spiritual harmony is the basis of the world, which is relevant as no one. And the tolerance as well as statements of peace is very demanded in all the countries of the world. And actually, a year ago, on 28th of January 2022, in the extended meeting of the National Assembly's Congress, we foresaw and stated that in the countries of the Eurasian Union, the Day of Spiritual Concord should be celebrated. And we recorded a video which we'd like to show you. Please, our technicians, do it. On the 18th of October, we celebrate the Day of Spiritual Concord, which is in the history of Kazakhstan as the Day of peace and mutual respect, which unites the people of Kazakhstan around such common human values like stability and spiritual concord. I'd like to congratulate everybody on this day and wish to all of us the peace and concord. We should preserve our peace and our country for the future generations, for our children, for those who will be after us. These should be people who would love their country, their lives, that there is nature around us, the world, as well as the universe. And that's why I just recalled the motto of the Congress of Spiritual Concord, the outer space, earth, humanity. The role of different confessions also play a great role. During 30 years of independence, they contribute into strengthening of peace and friendship. In Astana city, the 54 different religious organizations are registered. Distinguished friends, we congratulate all of you on the Day of Spiritual Concord. Allah is with us, and in all your families there should be happiness and health. That's why I'd like to draw special attention to the Day of Spiritual Concord. We congratulate Kazakhstani people on specific special holiday, Day of Spiritual Concord. We live in a very special time when serious conflicts and tension around the nations, around the residents of the earth is just obvious, and that's why in such a difficult time we need to keep and preserve the spiritual concord that was formed and was the distinguishing sign of our country. We wish everybody well-being, peace, and quietness, especially in our families, in our staffs, around our neighborhood. And congratulations on this holiday. We may say, using one word, that Kazakhstan is just the unified nation that was united under this sky in Kazakhstan. Kazakhstan should become the case, the example of concord and role model, and Kazakhstan should be pronounced with pride. Everybody who hears this, the name of our country, should understand that this is the country of peace. We'd like to wish the most important thing. We will not be able to develop and to move on without unity. I congratulate everybody on this holiday, and I wish everybody well-being, happiness, kindness, as well as love. I congratulate you on this holiday, and let the God save our country. I congratulate you on the Day of Spiritual Concord. Let our country be in prosperity. As people say in our country, without unity, there will be no happiness, and that's why we'd like our country be developing further on. We all need to be supportive of this motto. Distinguished participants, I'd like also to add that today, from early morning, due to the Day of Spiritual Concord, all our religious organizations of the city served their ceremonies, and in Hazrat Sultan Mosque there was the main charity lunch for the poor, especially for this holiday. And all the religious organizations of the country during the year and from year to year organize different events of different format. And before coming into the introduction of our ceremony, we'd like to talk about the time management, that every speaker has 5 minutes for speaking, and after that we will discuss different issues. And I am confident that during this conference there will be the exchange of the opinions, and I wish all the participants discussions. And in order to open this conference, I'd like to give the first floor to Deputy Mayor of Astana, Mr. Bayken Yeset. Distinguished participants of the conference, good afternoon. Today in our capital we celebrate the Day of Spiritual Concord. This is a very important event, and that's why I congratulate you on behalf of my heart. And certainly concord and tolerance, as far as this is the basis of the peace and is the home for all such kind of values and principles. On behalf of our mayor, Mr. Kulginov, I'd like to welcome all of you in this conference on the Day of Spiritual Concord. This year we celebrate the 30th anniversary of mutual respect and spiritual concord. And I'd like, first of all, to welcome and express appreciation to the author of this idea, Mr. Toliganov Muhammadjan. Actually, mass media, our journalists, asked me to disclose the basis or reason of this holiday, history of this holiday. And as far as I am from the newer generation, I wanted the journalists asked about that from the author of this holiday. And we celebrate together with you, with participation of the idea of such a holiday, Mr. Muhammadjanov. And not long ago, we conducted the 7th Congress of Religious Leaders, and among the special guests, we need to note the arrival of the Imam of Azhar al-Taib Mosque and the head of Vatican, Pope Francisco. As the head of the state noted to his message to the nation, he said that we need to take into account the role of the Kazakh nation as the basis, and we need to continue to strengthen interreligious and interethnical concord and tolerance. And in the country, in the capital, there are representatives of 54 different confessions, and the Akimat of our capital conducts different events and actively participates in different events and charity events as well as socially important events. And since 2017, the representatives of the religious confessions, together with Akimat, plants the trees in the alley of the interconfessional Concord, and we have already so many trees planted there. To continue this kind tradition, this year, participants of the 7th Congress of World Religions planted also the first trees in the Park of Peace and Concord, which is the continuation of this alley. And in 7 hectares of the land, in the next year, the construction will be finished of the park. We will continue to plant the trees further on in this park. And the state pays a lot of attention to prevent different conflicts between the nations and confessions, to continue the principles of interreligious concord. And you know that our ancestors, as well as people who resided in the territory of Kazakhstan, are very hospitable, and concord is the main characteristic feature of our people. And from all these ancient times, we continue to share these values. And on all my heart, I wish you health and the peaceful sky above your heads. And I think that our conference will be very successful and fruitful. And certainly, we'd like to express appreciation to you for your welcome speech. The next floor I'd like to give to the Deputy Chair of the Assembly of Mr. Bakirov.
Good afternoon, distinguished participants of the conference, distinguished Tolegan Muhamedjanov and Mr. Baiken Yeset. First of all, on behalf of the Minister of Information and Social Development of the Republic of Kazakhstan, I'd like to congratulate you with this 30th anniversary of the Days of Spiritual Concord. And our country is a multi-confessional and polyethnic state. We always put spiritual concord, unity, and mutual understanding above everything else. And thanks to our hardworking Kazakh nation, we were able to create a stable and secure state and prevent any misunderstandings. And of course, sometimes there are some negative moments due to destructive and different associations appear. However, we do everything to prevent any such negative spread of information. We also respect the freedom of religion, and I'd like to note that Kazakhstan is a multi-confessional state, and we have a harmonious relations with all representatives of different religions, and the evidence of this is the congresses of the world and traditional religions that take place in Kazakhstan, and recently in September we had the 7th Congress of the World and Traditional Religions, which allowed us to consolidate the dialogue among the representatives of different religions and faiths. And our international experts gave a very positive assessment to the work of the 7th Congress and emphasized the value of such events. Distinguished participants of the conference, as you well aware, the spiritual richness of the nation only contributes to the development of our country, and the stability is the basis of this, and the spiritual concord is the basis of peace. So we came to this day thanks to the spiritual harmony. I wish you all success in all your endeavors. Thank you, Mr. Baujan Jalelovich, for your welcoming remarks. Ministry of Information and Social Development contributes greatly to the such events as the Day of Spiritual Concord, and we are grateful to the ministry. And I'd like to also say that today is a specific day, and I would like to give the floor to Mr. Tolegen Muhammadjanov, the initiator and author of this idea, of this day. And of course, Tolegen Muhammadjanov annually participates in the events related to the Day of Spiritual Concord. Please, the floor is yours. Thank you. Distinguished colleagues and friends, we would like to say that the most important for our peoples is noting the unity, and we always wait for this day because we remember about those people who were at the origins of this movement, who contributed greatly to the development of this movement. And unfortunately, some of them are not with us, and that is why I'd like to now remember their names so that we never forget about them. First of all, this is Mr. Valentin Sidorov, an outstanding philosopher, poet. Also, Mr. Afanasy Veselitsky, prominent statesman and public figure of Russia, Lyudmila Shvetsova, president of the Association Peace Through Culture Europe, Wilhelm Augustat, also a great Russian poet, Eduard Balashev, and all these people stood at the origins of our movement, supporting and strengthening our spirit. Also, I'd like to thank Metropolitan of Tula and Yefremovsky, Alexei, also Mufti Radbek Kaja, a wonderful poet and public figure, Olja Suleimenov, also a scientist and recognized ideologist of our movement, Yuri Ageshin, a true peacemaker and humanist, Inna Ippolitovna, and many, many others. And no matter what I do, creative activity, public service, or administrative work, serving the spiritual concord has always remained and remains the main meaning of my life. I'm not doing this for myself. In each of the spheres of my activity, it seems to me I have fulfilled myself enough. But besides that, I am a happy father and a loving grandfather, and I care about what country and what world we leave to our children and grandchildren. Our generation created independent Kazakhstan, built its capital, the beautiful Astana, and of course we all dream that our descendants will multiply these achievements, consolidate and surpass them. And this can be done only on the condition of peace and harmony among all citizens of multinational and multi-confessional Kazakhstan. I want my children and grandchildren to have access to the joy of communicating with all the diversity of the world created by the Almighty, its nature, its beauty and grandeur, its colors and sounds. I want music, which has become my love and profession, to unite and elevate people around the world and not become an instrument in political games, an object of cancellation or appropriation in individual countries. But all our personal, so simple and understandable desires and dreams have a chance to come true only if one global condition is observed: maintaining peace on the planet. Only by preserving peace, mankind will be able to remain on this earth, the only planet inspired by life in the foreseeable cosmos. It's no coincidence that the motto of the First World Congress of Spiritual Culture was the words Space, Earth, Humanity. It is gratifying that the work began 30 years ago continues. Today I greet our friends in different countries of the world with whom we held together in Astana the World Forum of Spiritual Culture. However, these achievements do not give us the right to content and weaken our efforts in our common struggle. Unfortunately, the world hasn't become stronger, fairer, and safer over the years. Mankind has come close to the threat of the Third World War, and some believe that is already implicitly going in the form of a hybrid war. But as you know, all wars sooner or later end with negotiations and peace. This will be done by politicians and heads of state, and for the dialogue of politicians, fertile ground is needed. This ground must be prepared using the means of people's diplomacy by representatives of the peace-loving public, you and I. And the first in their ranks are spiritual shepherds, figures of science and culture. Their word, coming from the heart, is much more accessible than many official speeches. Now, inspired by this idea, I wrote the following lines, and in Euronews there was a very popular program, No Comment, and usually we saw countries of East where people went outside and burned the flags of Western countries, and perhaps seeing all of these citizens of the Western part of the world, they couldn't understand this hatred against them. So I've been thinking, how can we hold this struggle between the East and West, and I wrote the following lines. I want to be a god for a moment, give people reason for the ages. Of course, this is a hyperbole, a poetic exaggeration. This is not possible for any person, but this is the highest goal to which I have always aspired. Do not become my God for a moment. There is only one way: in prayer. Find a way, revelation, to the great truth in the struggle, for the blue sky above us, for the sound of joy in the eyes, for a land full of flowers, for eternal friendship. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Tolegen Muhammadjanov. On behalf of all participants, we thank you for your statement. And the next floor I'd like to give to the chair of the Spiritual Administration of Muslims of Kazakhstan, to Mufti. In the name of God, the most beneficent, the most merciful, I'd like to start my statement from our ancestors, from the earliest of ages, we can see that our religion, Islam, it popularizes concord and peace. And when Muslims greet each other, they say Assalamu alaikum. And in this regard, I'd like to say to all of you, Assalamu alaikum. We ask the great Allah health to all the people and participants of our conference, distinguished participants of the conference, distinguished Tolegan Muhammadjanov. First, I'd like to read the welcoming speech on behalf of the Chair of Spiritual Administration of Muslims of Kazakhstan, Mr. Laurusbai Kajiit. This year we celebrate the 30th anniversary of Day of Spiritual Concord, with which I congratulate you all. In Quran, there are some words that say the mankind was created from one man and one woman, and we created people so that you can learn about each other. The different nations, the different peoples were created, and the main thing, we need to be respectful of the God's creation. And of course, then peoples, they have their own specifics, their own peculiarities. However, we are all one. And the prophet said that the Islam Ummah, he started from Medina, calling for, urging for unity and concord, and the basis of Islam, its basic values are concord and unity. And according to the canons of Quran, the representatives of different religions shall respect each other despite their differences in their beliefs. And thanks to the great Allah, today in the heart of Eurasia, there is such a country as Kazakhstan, which is a respectable state in which different peoples and representatives of different religions live in harmony and unity. And the Supreme Mufti, Laurusbai Kajiit, at the beginning of the year, in his article for the representatives of religions, stated that the 2022 is the year of unity and harmony and concord. And in many cities of our country, we organize different events to support this call. And a center of elders and center of experts was established under the spiritual administration of Muslims of Kazakhstan. And in the capital of Kazakhstan, such events take place annually. And one of such events is the Congress of Leaders of World and Traditional Religions. And the poet Abai, in his words of wisdom, said that we all shall respect each other as brothers and sisters. And the head of state, in his State of the Nation address, also pointed out that we need to preserve the unity, the concord and harmony of our society. We shall all understand it and try to work hard to preserve what we have. Our khans and sultans, they also called for consolidation of peoples, and as true descendants of our ancestors, we shall continue this work towards consolidation in favor of our country, and we issue all health and success. Thank you all. Thank you very much. That is true. Interconfessional concord is very important. Thank you for your statement. Distinguished participants, please, I hope you understand us correctly. One of our friends is currently in India. That is why, due to time difference, we'd like to give the floor to the Secretary General of the Eurasian People's Assembly, Doctor of Economics and Political Science, Vilyaninov Andrei. Please, the floor is yours.
Distinguished participants of the conference, I greet you on behalf of the Eurasian People's Assembly and congratulate you on the 30th anniversary of such an important event as the Congress of Spiritual Concord. I thank everyone who stood at the origins and all these years supported various formats of the Permanent Congress, both in Kazakhstan and in other countries. Its unifying ideas and solutions are still relevant today, since the consent and cooperation of peoples have always been and remain as the main tasks of the world agenda. They can be solved through the development of intercultural and interfaith relations, information, and humanitarian exchanges. Distinguished friends, this is wonderful to understand. It's very pleasant to have such an opportunity to, on 26th of October, in Moscow. We are sorry for these technical issues. In Moscow, there will be international contest. The participants thereof are representatives of more than 20 countries, which is evidence of Thanks a lot to Mr. Andrei Yurievich. They are just now in India, and because of the time difference and distance, probably I would add what is the essence of their speeches. The point is that Andrei Belyaninov is Secretary General of the Eurasian People's Assembly, and Ms. Smirnova Svetlana is the chair lady of the Federal Assembly of the Russian Federation, and they decided that such kind of spiritual concord events should take place in all the Asian states. And on the eve of 30th anniversary, they will conduct the International Forum of Spiritual Concord on 26th of October in Moscow in the public chamber of Russia. And that's why our movement is followed up by other countries. And I'd like to express these people, to these people my appreciation. It's a pity that they are not with us, but the idea is clear. Thanks a lot, Mr. Tulegan. You again showed yourself as an important figure not only in the territory of Kazakhstan, but also in the Eurasian continent. All this idea is adopted everywhere in the Eurasian continent, and thanks a lot for such initiatives. The next floor we'd like to give to the Dean of the Astana Church District, Archimandrit Sergei, distinguished participants of this meeting, distinguished Mr. Tulegan. I'd like to pass the words of greeting, Metropolitan of Astana and Kazakhstan, who wanted to express appreciation to you personally for your all this work during 3 decades, what you do in order to strengthen the spiritual concord in our country, and to express appreciation to all of us for doing in our positions everything in order to achieve the goals that were set up to us. And as I already heard from the welcome speeches, the Day of Spiritual Concord already went outside our favorite Kazakhstan and will be now celebrated in the countries of Eurasia. And Eurasia, as we understand, is more than half of the world. And even the fact itself says about huge success of all the initiatives that were held 30 years ago and started here in Kazakhstan. We all understand that Concord itself, we're talking about spiritual Concord, is the Concord at the level of the constant, of the unified understanding of moral spirituality, which is in all the traditional religions, which is in all the people who are busy with the spiritual creation, poets, composers, people of arts who are interested in the spiritual development of the public, of the communities. And that's why we have something to be in agreement in Concord, and this is the work of many generations, those who developed the Concord and strengthened it. And for that we should thank a lot and be happy for. And at the same time, I'd like also to say that when we heard the phrase about the immunity we have to all false spirits that were built on different principles apart to concord and peace, maybe people have immunity in adults, but the growing generations that live in different digital space apart to information storm, what they have now, we didn't have such pressings, such difficulties. And I am doubtful about the immunity of our children and teenagers. And when in other countries there is no control for the mass media and they do a lot in propaganda and change the views of people, and people switch from concord and peace not just to confrontation but to very tough opposition. And in this regard, I'd like to say that one of the points that probably will be included into some common document, the point should be related to the protection of Concord that we were able to form in the territory of our country. Because it is no secret, we all understand wonderfully that not everybody likes this Concord, but it is very easier to destroy than to build the unity and peace, and that's why we need to be united to protect the Concord. We need to counteract the dissemination of ideology of hatred towards the mankind at all the levels, and the state should strengthen pursuing such kind of people, and this is the mission of the state as well as of the community of people who form the culture, first of all, and this should be cultural society, spiritual people, and people who make elite of the state. They should not shake hands with those who are able publicly disseminate such kind of statements. This should not be adopted or accepted by people, and it should be done just now. And one more, what I wanted to say for practical issues. On the one side, we see that the state gives the opportunity to the spiritual organizations and entities, mosques and churches and houses of prayers to do their activities. On the other side, we also face that in many issues we personally are very restricted in our activities. I think that in order to be more effective and bring these values to the young people, to the kids, the spiritual foundations that makes the Concord, such kind of common moral principles related to the families, to the communications with each other. We need to give more opportunities to bring these spiritual basics to the young people. Maybe this will be the business of parliamentarians, how to organize this in the schools or maybe in the universities. But at the religion studying level, we need not just strengthen, not just bring this information to the young people, but stay that there is some constant of moral, spiritual behavior in the communities, and this will not be interruption into the religious organizations' activities, but we should give the common values not to contradict to each other and explain that our public, moral and spiritual concord certainly relates to such kind of unity between us. And in different events, I always say and repeat again here. Yesterday I was thinking what I will be talking about and just entered the bookstore in the center of Astana, the biggest one, and was walking a lot and saw different books about the indifference, being selfish, and so on. There are very many topics of these books, and I didn't find any book like Bible or Quran, any book on spiritual upbringing. And so far, whatever you can find, tarot cards, myths of different Vikings and Japanese myths and etc., but no book about traditional Islam or traditional Christianity, nothing. And these poor, unfortunate kids come up to the shelves full of esoteric books and buy such kind of books because there is no other books. That's why we need to change the policy in this area, and the state should make a control about that. We have a list of books that are allowed, and they should be represented. We need to strengthen this information work, at least to give opportunity to people to read spiritual, traditional books. And we need also to support to any stores, let there be any quotes, and maybe the state has a right to set such kind of conditions. You enter the bookstore and see the books of our outstanding writers. Maybe it will be cheaper than other books, but we need to support this. This also relates to the movies that strengthen the traditional values. We should not relax, and we need to give appreciation to the generations that created such kind of concord and spirituality, and that's why we need to follow up with this work. And Mr. Telegian, on our side, we are ready to protect that spiritual concord we have in our country and to do everything in order to make it developed in other countries apart to Kazakhstan. Together with the Kazakhstan, and that's why we'd like spirituality be reigning in our country. Congratulations on this holiday. Thank you very much, Archimandrite Sergei, for your kind words. And actually, your suggestion is included into our document. Together with our central apparatus, we will be elaborating it. And not in words, but in action, you contribute strongly into this huge work. Thank you very much. Distinguished colleagues, the floor is given to Father Yaroslav, Roman Catholic Church.
Thank you very much for inviting me. Mr. Tomasz Peta should have been in my place today here. However, he couldn't participate for the reason he's not in town now. So he sends his apologies for not being able to participate in this conference and his congratulations with this anniversary of the Day of Spiritual Concord. And I agree with Archimandrite Sergei regarding the books, and I found 2 books, was able to do it in a bookstore, and there are information on the spiritual values, of course, but I can share the names of these books. However, I'm not being paid for that. It's just a joke. So I also like to know that the Pope Francis visited our capital recently, and when he went back to Rome, I apologize for my bad Russian. I'm just learning, and I'm learning Kazakh as well. So the comments from the moderator that his Russian is quite good. So the Pope's words, Kazakhstan, was a surprise to me. I wasn't expecting that. I knew that Kazakhstan is a quite developed country. However, I didn't expect to see such developments in only 30 years of independence. This is a very beautiful country, a modern, beautiful capital, and I was astonished with this strive to move forward not only in a material development but also in a spiritual development. I didn't expect that. And regarding the Congress of the World and Traditional Leaders, it is a very important initiative. It shows that this country has a very visionary politics, because we see a progressive perception of the world in Kazakhstan, together with a understanding of spiritual values. 7 congresses have already taken place in Astana, and I hope to visit Kazakhstan once more. And I think you should be proud of the country you live in. And I think these are very, very important words from the Pope Francis. I've been in Kazakhstan for 3 years only, and in the capital I'm only for 6 months. I'm from Poland myself, and I'm the representative of the Catholic Church, and I feel myself at home here. A few days ago, one of my sisters visited me. I have 8 sisters and 3 brothers, and she came to visit me to look how I live here and to report to my mom. And she said, "Now I understand why you visit Poland so rarely, because you have brothers and sisters here. You do not need to go back to Poland for this. You feel at home here." And that is true. That's how I feel. Thank you very much. Thank you very much. And I'd like to add once more. I'd like to share my wishes with you. I wish you all to come closer to the truth, to share kindness, and I believe that by doing this, our country will become even better, even more beautiful, and I believe such events will greatly contribute to it. Thank you very much once again. Thank you, Father Yaroslav, for your kind words, for reciting the Pope Francis words. You are saying that you don't want to go back to Poland often, and I agree. We have a very spiritual country, and for us it's very important, and it's true. That's why we've created a congress. That's why we have established this day, because this is a sacred land where different confessions unite. I'd like to give the next floor to the head of the Evangelical Lutheran Church of Kazakhstan, to Mr. Yuri Novgorodov. Thank you very much, Mr. Moderator. Father Yaroslav, you said that you are at the place of metropolitan now. Perhaps you will soon become metropolitan yourself. Maybe it's a sign from above. Distinguished participants of the today's event, I'm quite new here, and I'd like to welcome you all at this event. And today, since the morning, I wanted to emphasize the role of Tolegen Mohamedjanov and Mr. Yosef, and emphasize significant role that of you in this day. We also see here today other people who contributes greatly to the arrangement of these events, one of whom is Mr. Nikolai Nikolaevich Maltsev, who is sitting here, and he's one of the best speechwriters of our country. He's quite modest, though, and we've studied at one alma mater together with him. So I believe that you, Tolegen Mohamedjanov, had many positions, but your role as father and grandfather are the most important. And it is true. It is true. That's what God appointed us to do. A man shall be a father, and a woman shall be a mother, and all our other roles are only ways to fulfill our main purpose on earth. However, people are forgetting about that, and that is why children are being raised by OK Google and other modern day technologies, while mothers and fathers are more focused on their careers, on earning more money, and etc. And I believe that this is not very good in a trend in our society. Politics and decision makers who are responsible for the fate of the countries and nations, they do not come from cosmos, they also come from the mothers. And however, how do they understand their responsibility? How do they understand their role on this earth? This all depends on their upbringing. If they had even those two books, for example, about the about which Dean Sergei talked, then about what kind of upbringing can we talk? Because everything depends on culture. And if we look at the world today, it seems like everybody is trying to be ignorant. Nobody cares. And in 90s, in 1992, 1997 and 1998 were very difficult for the country, and in many families a margarine was something delicious and hard to get. And in such difficult, challenging environment, any thing could have led to a disaster. However, Kazakhstan was able to overcome these challenges, and I respect the Pope Francis very much. And Pope Francis is the third Pope in my life with whom I have met, and perhaps it's also a sign. And I respect him very much because he's a very courageous man to find strength to do his service. I believe is a great courage, and if I was in his place, I would have chastised my assistants, because Kazakhstan has not 30 years of culture but thousands of years of culture, because it's a very ancient nation and it intersected with many other cultures on its development. And it's true that it is very easy to lose immunity. So let's work on preserving such immunity in Kazakhstan, because if we lose it, let's just look at the news and we will understand immediately what awaits us. And sometimes it seems to me that there is a new profession, a fighter for peace, because in so many conferences such fighters speak. However, the most wise things I've heard from two people, perhaps some of you know that in Karaganda there are a memorial cemetery, and there are people who died in 1940s and 50s are buried, and for some times it was in a very poor state, and then they tried to rebuild it, and people from different ethnicities are buried there. So once when I was going back from Almaty, I saw that there are many people and cars gathered, and a memorial was being opened. And as I remember, there was a president of one of the Eastern Europe countries. I stopped there, and a shepherd stopped by me. We said hello to each other, and he said that this is not right. They lived together, they struggled together, and they died together. Why to divide them now? Why not to build one memorial for all of them? And to be honest, I was surprised with the wisdom of his words. So when I meet with my colleagues in the regions, they ask me, "Are you German?" So I respond, "No, I'm Russian." And once I visited a city in the eastern Kazakhstan region, I saw a parish there, and the only there were only 5 or 6 people, and mostly they were women, and a clergyman was quite young, and after the liturgy he runs up to me and we start to speak. So he speaks to me, and I'm kind of in a hurry, and I say, I know all of this, and I am an archbishop of Lutheran church. So he should have asked me, are you German? So, and then people usually criticize me. And this young clergyman said to me, doesn't archbishops need blessings? And I said, of course we do, more than anyone else. So I had an honor to meet a true clergyman for whom, first of all, I was a man not of any ethnicity, but a man. Thank you very much. I'm sorry, I apologize. I just wanted to mention why I'm interested in a spiritual concord. When I studied at the Semipalatinsk University, we had a church nearby, and we've always heard music from there, a choir, and I wanted to visit this church. I was 17 years old and I couldn't understand how can I go there, but I went, and there was a Russian old woman, and by looking at me she understood that I'm afraid, and she said, don't be afraid, come in, we have different religions, but the God is one. So that is why from that time on I'm very interested and active in the religious affairs. That is true. We are all men on earth, and you know that during the pandemic many countries, they closed their borders, and in 2020 during the times of pandemic there was in Almaty, two men went in the church and they prayed, and Patriarch told me that those were Muslims, not Christians. They couldn't get access to the mosque because due to the pandemic, the areas of the city were closed, so they went to church and prayed, although they were not Christians but Muslims. So I think first of all we need to remember about that we are all men on this earth. And I'd like to give the next floor to the first secretary of the Apostolic Nunciature in the Republic of Kazakhstan, Monsignor Mikhail Tutal.
Yes. First of all, good evening. Last words of greetings of the Apostolic Nuncio, His Excellency, Monsignor Chulikat. Just 1 month ago, we were celebrating the 7th Congress of Leaders of World and Traditional Religions, thanks to the Republic of Kazakhstan and to its people, starting from His Excellency, the President of the Republic, Tokayev, and all parliamentary, governmental, and city authorities of the capital. Trees were planted in that occasion, but planting a tree is not all. It is necessary, but we know that a tree can die if no one is taking care of it. So I think that today we are here to take care of each other and taking care of trees of peace and concord planted during the Congress and all other occasions organized in Kazakhstan and in the world for enhancing harmony and peace. And Kazakhstan is doing this since 30 years. We know harmony is balance, coexistence, and order of different parts. So the only thing I want to underline is that the parts are really different, not only in their shape and appearance, but they work together, like in the human body. Many organs, different tasks, but only one life. The body indeed is alive or dead, healthy or sick. And we know also that a few bad cells can kill the whole body. So I think it is our society and our world. We live together in harmony, in peace, in concord, or we'll die together. So thank you again for creating the occasions of meeting each other and remembering that harmony comes from the spirituality and starting from each other, starting from us and the relation between each other. Thank you.
Благодарим за выступление.
Thank you very much, Mr. Mikhail Tutula. The next floor is given to Chair of the Board of Nazarbayev Center for the Development of Interfaith and Intercivilization Dialogue, Mr. Sarsenbayev Bulat. Thank you. Thank you very much. First of all, I'd like again to congratulate Mr. Tolegen Muhamedjanovich, my old friend and partner, as well as friend in our common lives, common work. And actually, such a holiday is needed for every country, as far as Spiritual Concord is the center around which all the nation should be united. When people say that there should be the idea of the people's unity, such kind of thing is the Spiritual Concord. That's why I am very thankful for such kind of event be celebrated on annual basis in our country. And I participated in the previous events as ambassador of Kazakhstan, also came together with the guests, with high-level guests from Jordan here, and this was the year 2010, the peak of such kind of events that were conducted in our country. And so far, we still continue celebrating this holiday, and this is because of you, because of all your contribution into it, and people who worked with you. I express appreciation to Nurdaulet. Also, he is not bureaucratic, always is creative, and it may be seen in his organization, in his work, organizational work, and we try to support him. And not long ago, we conducted the 7th Congress of Leaders of World and Traditional Religions, and there were 2 main centers for conducting this event. Our center and local government, municipal local government, 2 big wings that did all the preparation work. I think that it was successful, and today many speakers recall this event, and they also quote the citations of people who participated in this event. That's why I want to say that today in Kazakhstan, we conduct the important work for system renovation of our country. And the message of the President of Republic of Kazakhstan on September 2nd, he said that the just state, the unified nation, will be the healthy community. And this is the main idea of his message. And that in Astana we conducted several events like the 7th Congress of Leaders of World and Traditional Religions, as well as the CICA that was conducted just the previous week. And Astana became the spiritual capital, as well as the capital of diplomacy and of international work that is being done for the peace, and drew the attention of the whole world to its events. I think that September and October are the months when people in the world became more familiar with our country, with our capital, became familiar with what we present ourselves as the nation. And actually, in some days, our country will celebrate on 25th of October, the Day of Republic, the day when we adopted Declaration of Independence of the Republic of Kazakhstan. It's important that we just defined the relevance of this event, and the president formed the new vision of our state, and the Day of the Republic should become the day of the historical step of our state into the statehood. And the trends of the global and national development. On the 27th of September, Mr. Tokayev declared the day of elections, and we are now preparing for the elections, which will become the main historical event, 20th of November. And the announcing of presidential election will be the event for the democracy strengthening when the world is changing with the rapid speed, and we need to respond the emerging threats outside Kazakhstan and inside it. And talking on the 14th of September on the opening of the 7th Congress of Leaders of World and Traditional Religions, the president talked about dilemma, what we need to be founded on in order to fight against the threats. And history says only about the goodwill, and there is no other alternatives for the success. And Kazakhstan always was for regulation of disputes at the table of negotiations, like UN does, and strengthening of peace is the important mission. And now we need to come back to humanitarian ideas, and humanitarian ideas are protected by the traditional religions: respect to the human rights, respect to each other, mutual assistance, openness, just, equality. These are the columns of the new system of security. And using the phrase from the old Greek myth about the golden rune, I'd like to underline that in the global and traditional religions, the Ariadne thread is the idea that a person or a human being during all his life should take all the windows from the ancient books. And we think that our global summit, religious summit, is very important to gather together the leaders, the spiritual leaders of the religions, and to set up a dialogue between them. And in this 7th Congress, we just rethought and understood the role of the global religious leaders, and the head of our state just drew attention to several important topics. First, all traditional religions are united by a set of the basic spiritual principles, among which there is the respect to the human life, countering the violence, which should become the foundation of the new global system already now. Second, in the 7th Congress, there was the large-scale dialogue between the spiritual leaders, which should demonstrate the humankind, the way out of the emerging confrontation in order to keep the sustainable peace, which should become the condition for resolution of conflicts in all the regions of the world. One of the important signs of the Congress was the bright speech of Pontific, and we talked about that today already. And he said a lot of kind words about Kazakhstan, about culture of Kazakhstan, and his opinion is important for us. And this is just a support to our people, to our leadership of the state, to the policy we conduct and the position of Kazakhstan in the international community. The messengers of Pope Francisco about Kazakhstan and Kazakhstani people were supported by all the participants of the Congress. Distinguished friends, using this opportunity, let me, as the ombudsman of the Congress of Leaders of Global and Traditional Religions, give you the main thesis of the historical document that was adopted as declaration of the leaders of global and traditional religions. Declaration consists of 35 points, and the main provisions state that the Congress of Leaders of Global and Traditional Religions should continue its activities for setting up the dialogues between the civilizations and states and nations, and play an important role to strengthen the peace and to promote the spiritual and moral values, and to avoid the destructive rhetorics that destabilize the peace. And we need to stop the blooding as the result of conflicts. And we need to live in peace and engage the leaders of the global and traditional religions and outstanding statesmen in order to regulate the conflicts, in order to achieve the peace. And the main global ideas are pronounced in all the languages of the world, and under auspices of the Secretariat of the Congress that is headed by the Chairman of the Senate, Mr. Ashimbayev, we want to inform you that we started to draft the concepts of the Congress as the universal, global, interface platform for 2023, for 2033. To implement all these tasks, we see the reliable way to achieve the spirituality of the nation under leadership of the President of the country, Mr. Tokayev. I am confident that we all, in joint efforts, could achieve these tasks and goals. I'd like to congratulate all the Kazakhstani nation and the participants of our conference on this holiday and on the upcoming holiday, the Day of Republic. Thank you for your attention. Mr. Bulat, thank you very much for your speech, for your kind words. Distinguished colleagues, for the next speech, we'd like to invite the guest who just covered more than 1,000 kilometers in order to be with us, the President of the Institute of Global Security, co-chair of the Arms Control and National Security Committee of the American Bar Association, Vice President of the UN Committee on Disarmament, Peace and Security under UN, Mr. Jonathan Granov.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I first want to thank Tologam Kamjanov for saying yes when the Spirit called him. Very few people have the courage and the humility to put themselves forward the way you have, and we are all beneficiaries of that. And we're all directed to similarly listen with our hearts and say yes. A few years ago, I had the privilege of being with an interfaith initiative that went up to above the polar ice cap, and we witnessed the melting of the polar ice cap. It was shocking to me. I didn't realize the scale of it. Hunks of ice the size of office buildings crashing into rivers that shouldn't be there, pouring billions and billions of gallons of water and melting 3-mile high of ice and making the naked stones. I was shocked by it. Buddhist, Muslim, Hindu, Christian leaders, and we then went from there, we went to the shrine of St. Francis of Assisi. And our message from this experience was, we have developed with our science and the way we live and our technology a way to melt the polar ice cap. We must have a technology to melt the human heart. And Spiritual Concord is the technology to melt the human heart. And love is its renewable energy. And that is our task. Martin Luther King, when he received his Nobel Peace Prize, in speaking about the power of love, said, "When I speak of love, I'm not speaking of some sentiment and weak response which is little more than emotional bosh, just an emotion. I'm speaking of that force which all the great religions have seen as the supreme unifying principle of all life. Love is the key that unlocks the door which leads to ultimate reality." I think we need to realize that the power of love is more powerful than anything else in creation. And compassion is what allows us to bring that love into community. So love and compassion come together. And I was thinking that what is our gathering about? I believe that we've come together from all over the world to serve the entire human family with our faith and our hearts and our love, and that we realize that the very regenerative processes of the planet Earth have been put at risk by human beings. We haven't given up the enterprise of pursuing security through war. In fact, we've developed weapons which, the more we perfect the weapons, the less security we obtain. Nuclear weapons are those weapons. So it's absolutely an imperative, it's a necessity that we realize that we're in a unique moment in history in which the guidance of the wise since time immemorial has said, see the human family as one. Treat your neighbor as yourself. And neighborhood has now become not a physical location, but a moral location of the entire planet Earth. So I was thinking, what are the things that on this journey that we're on together of committing ourselves to bringing love and compassion into action in the world? What are some of the things that we all, I believe, agree on? I think we agree that we have to strive to treat all lives with love and compassion. I believe that we all reject the distortions of religious, national, and racial prejudices which are used to violate the golden rule to treat others as we wish to be treated. I believe that we strive to respect the diversity of ways people pursue their individual ideals and passions. I believe that we collectively challenge the misuse of beliefs, rites, rituals, practices, philosophies, and traditions used improperly to degrade anyone and which will always lead to violence. I believe that we affirm the necessity, collectively, of bringing love and compassion into action. Why? To improve relationships of people, one nation to another, one religion to another, one belief to another, one gender to another, one race to another, and one person to another. And I think all of us have pledged that in all that we think and do and strive, to bring love and compassion into action and into the lives of all we meet. This is a simple note that I've just articulated, but the most important instrument in an orchestra is not the piano, it's not the violin, it's the tuning fork. Because without the tuning fork, the entire orchestra is cacophonous. And the tuning fork I'm suggesting has one prong of love and compassion and the other prong of the wisdom to understand that we have to pursue human security first and foremost. In this day and age, the borders between us cannot be used to divide us, but the heart that has love and compassion is the source of our human security. Thank you.
Спасибо.
Thank you very much, Mr. Jonathan. Thank you very much for coming from far abroad here to the capital of Kazakhstan. And I'd like to give the next floor to the president of the Kyrgyz National Conservatory, to Mr. Muratbek Begaliyev. Greeting distinguished participants, distinguished guests. I'd like to start my speech in Kyrgyz language. We have such wise words. An old friend is the best friend. And for many years, we've been gathering together. First of all, I'd like to congratulate you all with the 30th anniversary of the Day of Spiritual Concord. We understand your role, Mr. Tolegen Muhammadjanov, in the creation of this day, and it's invaluable. We hope that by common effort we will be able to preserve the status of this forum at the highest level, and hope it will contribute to the peace in the world. And 30 years ago, I was honored to participate in the first Global Congress of the Spiritual Concord, the participants of which spoke to the governments of the world to declare the October 18th the day of mutual understanding, mercy and help to the closest. And this is a unique holiday that was granted to us by Kazakh nation, and we are grateful to you for this. In 30 years, the tradition to mark this day with the meetings at Kazakhstani land entailed a global movement. However, while arms race exists and the relations among the states get more and more complex, we have tasks to work on. And Mr. Tchaikovsky noted the power of music at the time, and I, as composer, agree with his statement. However, the music of today's world doesn't sound good. At the time, Mr. Kipling said, yes, West is the West and East is the East, and they cannot find common ground, and any attempts to change it will be unsuccessful. However, I'd like to remind you that there is a continuation to these words. Until the day X comes. And I believe that through culture, science, and art, on the basis of good neighborhood, we can avoid the path of destruction, of self-destruction, which entails violence, drug addiction, terrorism, and other threats. And we have to use our ethic leverage, our culture, our experience. And I believe this forum is working towards these goals. The prominent public figure of India, Mahatma Gandhi, once rightly said, "I want in my house windows to stay open so that the wind of different cultures cross in my house." And Berdyaev, Hegel, and others said that the art is the source of life. In the West, in the East, the Renaissance put the human in the center of the creation, and the God created us all equal and gave us mission. And we, despite all the challenges, believe that true artists can reveal the true nature of mankind. As Mr. Aitmatov said, we need to save ourselves from. He said that we are the creatures of art, and it will always stay this way. There will be those who write great books and symphonies and who build paths to our parishes. And I believe that this forum, the congresses that take place in Kazakhstan, also build path towards the truth. And I would like to thank you for invitation and warm welcome. Thank you. Thank you very much, Mr. Begaliev, for your time. And distinguished colleagues, I'd like to give the floor to the representative of the Russian Academy of Education, Professor Mr. Sahil Farah, distinguished chair, distinguished Tolegen Muhammadjanov, brothers and sisters, ladies and gentlemen, I cordially congratulate you all with the great holiday, the Day of Spiritual Concord. This is a truly unique holiday, and Kazakhs shall be proud that Kazakhstan is the only country in the world that has such a holiday. And this is not in vain, because you represent the spirit of different religious associations and groups that are active in this beautiful country, and the initiator and the creator of this idea is Tolegen Muhammadjanov. We wish you to continue to deepen this spirit, to spread it across the countries, because what we need is the spirit of culture. And secondly, when, for example, we people of science, we prepare a statement. However, when we speak, we sometimes deviate from the main topic. And today I'd also like to deviate a little from the main topic. Distinguished colleagues, if we look at the politics, economy, wars of today, at the science and culture of today, we can see that our planet is suffering greatly, and we see the results of it: conflicts, wars, and all of this is the result of lack of uh, development of spiritual culture, and most of the people are suffering due to this. People are anxious, and today people are afraid of a nuclear war. Can you imagine this? And these are made by handmade by those who are currently leading us. Do they have moral values, these people? Where do they live? They live in the space of a selfishness, cultural, religious, ethnical selfishness. And moreover, what do we see? It seems like the progress is going on for 200 and 300 years. However, if we pay attention closely, then we see that 50% is destruction and 50% is progress. And development of technologies do not always entail true progress, because when there is no ethics in science, when there is no ethics in technologies, a destructive element appears. What is happening in culture and in a system of values in the world, in the postmodern world? What is happening in families? The spirit of anti-culture is can be seen everywhere. So what alternative do we have? We need to cultivate a supreme culture. We need to especially spread this culture among the leaders of this world, religious and political leaders. When I'm being asked what are the relation between religion and science, I always talk about the Einstein. When he was asked about this, he said that science without culture cannot develop. So the culture is important everywhere. People involved in politics, if they do not have spiritual culture, then they become not only selfish, but they spread anger, they spread fear, and We need this spirit of concord, spirit of supreme culture, and in this regard, I wrote a book, The Culture Will Save the World, and I identified two directions in culture: moral culture based on love, friendship, bravery, courage, faith, patriotism, humanism, and the second is intellectual culture, which is based on the culture of our mind, on science, and a spiritual culture can be a symbol of truth. And when these two directions of culture work in harmony, we can achieve the culture of concord, and that's what we all wish for. And we scientists, we have our minds and we have our pens, and we do our best. And this book is quite voluminous, and jointly with my colleague from Azerbaijan, we wrote this book, which is called Culture Will Save the World. It's currently being translated into the Arabic language and later will be translated into the French and English. And taking this opportunity, I'd like to present this book to my dear colleague and brother, Mr. Tolegen Muhamedjanov. Mr. Suhail Naim Farah, thank you very much for your time, for your cordial words. Thank you very much. And we'd like to give the final word to the Vice President of Peace Through Culture Europe, Gundi Lier, who is joining us online.
Я хочу немного представить.
I want to just represent Ms. Gundi Lier. She is the spouse of the well-known European person from EU, Mr. Gulier de Stad. And she is not only his spouse, but also is a person who does a lot in order to develop this movement in Europe.
Organizers and co-workers, dear friends, dear Tolegen. 30 years ago, unbelievable and unforgettable. In retrospective, we cannot think highly enough of all the efforts required at that time to make things happen the way they did. The very first idea by Valentin Sidorov and the great Moscow group of PTC on the whole, the extremely generous help by Kazakhstan's first president Nursultan Nazarbayev, and above all the courage developed by Tolegen Muhamedjanov and his team to lead all the efforts to the final event. Not to forget the very moment in history, the political turn had just happened, and this opened numerous new possibilities waiting to be realized. A miracle to see such an international group of participants. So many people from Europe, where Willy Augustat had concentrated all energies to make this conference happen by traveling a number of times to Moscow and Almaty for coordination matters on all levels, especially at that time when computer technology was still in its infancy and Eastern communication most difficult. But yes, we could. And all this was continued throughout the years and until today. We may all agree higher forces were certainly involved in this process. Thank you. I will always remember our very first arrival after long flights from everywhere, and the extremely warm and surprising welcome at the old Almaty airport, with those beautiful models handing out flowers to all of us. See by yourself one of the old pictures I found with Willi Augustat, of course, among those girls. What a joy to see you all again for this outstanding anniversary, the jubilee of our common endeavor, born in our hearts in the early 90s, shortly after the political turn of history between East and West. Let me express my heartfelt, warmest congratulations to all of you, dear friends and co-workers. I distinctly recall from my personal experience so many details and the extreme efforts and difficulties that you, Tollegan, took upon yourself in order to realize this outstanding great event in 1992, called Towards Spiritual Concord. The basic idea united us all and helped to overcome all difficulties and details required for the teams to finalize all necessities on time. Fiery efforts were developed everywhere and created unbelievable strength and power, new energies and possibilities. A somehow contagious enthusiasm had developed, and finally around 50 individuals from Europe could be moved to join the common path, seeking for extraordinary ideas in your country, and most of all in the community forming there. Two photos show some of our then young faces. Since time has passed, quite a number of our nearest and dearest friends cannot be among us anymore. Let us think about all those with gratitude and love who certainly are watching from a different sphere, spending their blessings. No doubt, the very special spirit of these moments can certainly help to make this conference a success in so many ways. And this special day of October 18th even became a national holiday in Kazakhstan and beyond. Such special spirit and quality is always required when something significant is about to happen. And therefore, I wish to all of us many opportunities in life to find the right moment for some very special move for the good of all mankind, in unity and diversity, in peace and harmony, in spiritual concord. The seeds have been sown for the future growth and harvest. Time has come to urgently overcome discord on all levels. Let's all work for this sacred target. May peace prevail on earth. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you very much, Ms. Gondi Ler, for your wonderful speech. Distinguished colleagues, by that, all our presentations came to their end, and as initially I wanted to switch to the issues and suggestions, I suggest to postpone it to tomorrow, as far as we are short of time, and we are two-day conference, and that's why, please, let me announce our conference be over. It was at the high level, and there were a lot of different wonderful ideas presented. Tomorrow our conference will start at 1100. Now I invite you to the Congress Hall, to the concert of State Academic Philharmonic Society of Akimat of Astana. Thank you very much. Thanks a lot to organizers, to participants of this conference. Congratulations on the 30th anniversary of our conference. And today we have conducted the first day of large-scale event that was devoted to strengthening the interrelations between the countries in order to promote all the spiritual concord. On behalf of the organizers of the conference, let me express my appreciation to all of you for active participation in the work of the conference. We are waiting for you tomorrow at 11 o'clock at this exact room for continuation of the conference. For you and for us, there will be at 6 o'clock in an hour the concert in the Congress Hall that is devoted to this day of spiritual concord. And congratulations on the 30th anniversary, and we wish you health and family well-being. Thank you very much. Also, I suggest everybody to come to the banner in order to make the group picture.
Балықтарыңызға. Все переходим сюда, к баннеру. Құрметті қонақтар, баннерге келіңіздеріңізді сұраймыз.